Hey there, everyone. Thought I'd talk a little bit about how I'm changing the way I've been training as far as my basics go on stand up and striking. First thing we talk about when you're learning a new style is how you should stand. I've tried a few different styles or so. In Taekwondo, when I started Taekwondo, it was the summer of 1987. This is how they taught us to take our fighting stance. So I'm going to set this down and show you. See how this goes, huh? Taekwondo, they want us to be kind of sideways with the front foot facing forward. So it's a rear weighted stance. So you're going to step back into your fighting stance like this. And you want to be thin this way and palm out on the front hand, palm in on the back hand. This is what I learned for a fighting stance. So funny thing is, then I went on to a Kempo Wushu system, and their basic fighting stance is more of a horse stance done. So if there was a line going down the floor, your front toe would be on that line, and your heel of your back foot should be on that same line, and you're just in a horse stance. Everything's facing this way, and so your fist should be vertical, facing palm in, so you're in a neutral stance. So they also encourage, just seems like front shoulders a little bit lower than the other, so it's supposed to be a neutral stance. Then I went to Shaolin Kung Fu, which is really kind of like the older Kung Fu, and maybe it's just this school, but I've seen it elsewhere maybe. They recommend a basic fighting stance that is a front stance. Your hips can be at that 45-degree angle, but we want our front foot facing toe forward and our back heel on that same line with the back toe out a little bit. So your hips are like this, but you're going to be palm in. So that's the funny thing, is we went from being all the way sideways to palm forward, being neutral in a horse stance with palms, hands vertical. And now we're talking about being on a forward weighted stance with our palms in. So that's three distinctly different ways of standing. So I would say anything like that, as far as my Kung Fu, Kempo, and Taekwondo, those I consider to be all Shaolin based. They're all kind of related. So when we talk about, I like to call it a karate punch, they all have it. All four actually have a karate punch just like this too. So anyways, a little later on I saw the four basic boxing strikes. So when he taught me, that instructor showed me the stance. It's kind of like a forward weighted stance. I think he kind of recommends being middle weighted, but front foot facing forward, back foot toe out, so you could be at that angle. So that's going to have your lead hand out here, and your back hand, instead of being out here like Shaolin, we just want to make sure we're protecting our rib and our face right here. So I practiced this for a while and did my four, basic boxing strikes from this stance for quite a while. And boxing's kind of simple. I like it. It's usually like, I kind of think of it as like a front stance. And then when you turn, you're on the ball of your foot, so your knee could be this way or this way. So it's just a bent knee stance. So it's like we call it a soft front, that's a regular front bow stance. Then that would be a soft bow stance. So in boxing, all you're doing is using soft bow stances when you turn. Anyways, so I've seen all these different variations, and one I've seen most recently when I joined Straight Blast Gym. They are mixed martial arts, so jiu-jitsu, and the kickboxing combines Western boxing with typically Muay Thai or anything that has good kicks in it, right? So the way they train us to fight is to be facing forward more so with our hands right here. So you don't want them out here where people can get them. You want them to be in close. And so they might also call this peekaboo style, because if your hands are right here, then you can easily bring them right up. So and the reason you want to face forward is because if you're facing somebody who does wrestling, they're going to get after your front leg to get a takedown. So wrestlers a lot of times are actually just like this. So it's kind of like you were in a wrestling stance and you just made this into your boxing stance. So the reason we don't want to go sideways is it's very easy to drag somebody in and capture their back like this. And I say that because it's been It's worked on me because I was sparring with somebody in jiu-jitsu trying to take a kung fu stance. She grabbed my arm and just next thing you knew, she was behind me. Good job. That would be my buddy Sierra. If she happens to see this. She got me good. Anyway, so I've learned to face forward. So this is really my favorite. Now, out of all these stances, it's funny, you know, they all have an ideology now. When I was in Taekwondo, we were kicking a lot. Everything was about kicking. So if I'm standing sideways like this, you know, I'm trying to stay away, and then come in and then tag them with a nice long technique, see? So this is okay if you're way out here. And, you know, and this is okay too if you're out here. But if you're in close, you really want, you know, you don't want to lean, but you want to lead with your head as you move forward. So you should be over your hips with your hands in front of you. And then lead with your head as you come in. So that's how I'm changing the way I fight. So when I go through my basic strikes, from now on I use a stance that's more like this, more forward facing, squared up with your opponent. And so the same applies when you're on the ground, is you never want your back to your opponent. You always want to face them. So if you're on the ground, get to your back as fast as you can and be belly up, for example. So same is true standing or lying down, however your fight ends up. Anyways, the next important thing they teach you when you're a white belt is how to make a fist. So I was brand new, and I'd say every karate school probably teaches the same thing, from kung fu to karate to kempo to TKD. So all of these are the same, and then there's all kinds of variations of the same thing. So yeah, they say a kick is a kick and a punch is a punch, but when you train under all these different masters, they're going to prescribe a different way to practice your basics. This is what Master so-and-so thinks you need to work on, and you go to the next system. This is what Master so-and-so, and then you get into, even in Taekwondo, there's a bunch of different masters. They're going to tell other students a slightly different way. Now, Kung Fu is a big world. There's going to be a lot of masters telling everyone a slightly different way, and they're going to have their reasons and da-da-da-da-da. But what we're looking for is functionality, you know? How you're standing is important to how you're functioning. So we're facing forward so we can deal with either wrestling or striking. And the only reason you're going to face sideways like this is, you know, the person you're fighting is only allowed to throw kicks and punches, and they're not going to grapple you. Well, anyway, so that's where I'm changing the way I stand. And punching is taught this way. You make your fist kind of tight like this. You just roll it on up and curl your thumb around it, see? So I've been practicing this type of punch for a long time. It's easy to mess that up. People tend to, it's kind of an uncomfortable position. So people tend to, you know, want to make a fist more like this. If you don't think about it, this is how people make a fist. And we try to go in and correct that all. Well, here's the thing. So all these years I've been training like this, and then we get on to Tai Chi and Xingyi, the Shaolin internal training. They talk about a cupped fist. It's a loose fist like this. And I've seen this discussed by the Russian Sistema guys. And people are saying that's bullshit or whatever, but they're right about a few things. And one of the things they're talking about is making a cupped fist for a couple different reasons. So one reason we teach beginners to stand with their hands in a fist is if your hands are open, it's easy to attack the fingers. If your opponent has that in mind, they can easily hurt your fingers. So you're keeping your fingers away from your opponent. And so it's funny. Now we're also telling beginners, you're better off hitting them with the open hand than with a fist, so you don't injure your hand. So you're kind of between a rock and a hard place, right? So you need to make a fist, but you don't really want to throw punches. Makes no sense. So anyways, you should learn how to throw good punches. And so that's what I'm going to talk about right now is the secret. I don't know if I should be giving away my secrets, but it's sort of, I'm going to just point out something that's already there, rather, so it's not really a secret. You just might not have ever thought of it like this, but anyways, I'm using that hollow hand. It's a hollow punch. I don't know if it's the same thing as a hollow point bullet. Hollow bullet, you know, I don't know if it's the same idea. This is like a nice tight fist. Now, as far as protecting your fingers goes, you can still really hurt somebody if you get them like this. Just try it on yourself. But if you make a fist like this, it's not as easy. You might save your fingers from that same thing, if anything. But another thing is like I have a lighter I can use. People say, you know, you want to take a lighter and put it in there if you happen to be a smoker and you need to fight in the alley. This will help make a nice fist. So sometimes you might have a weapon in your hand or just an object, and you can still punch with that. So if you have an empty fist, you might want to imagine something in there, because this is where your power is coming from. It's coming from here and traveling through your hand. And so when you're making this fist, this is how you do it. Now, something to think about is I didn't start using this until I started learning boxing, right? But when you put these on, you got something in there. It's like you're gripping around the cloth, and you can't really, you can't really do all this stuff. So it makes you end up, it's like you're making this kind of fist, so you're already getting the training you need to fight like this. So this is almost like the incorrect fist according to your Taekwondo teacher, your karate teacher. They're going to tell you, oh, hell no, it needs to be like that. This is just another way of doing it. This is more advanced, maybe, doing it this way. This can be used in different ways, so you can still use your hammer fist. You can use kind of an outer to inner palm strike, this type of thing. But really, it's a different way of considering. Now, I'm just going to share a little bit about how I train on the bag outside. I don't really like to hurt my skin on that. So this is the kind of clothes I like to wear to train, by the way. I just like to wear blue jeans. This isn't really a fashion statement. This is just a shirt that's good for going outside if I want to go through the trees, go up a path or something. It protects me from getting scraped up, and it's like wearing a super light jacket. So it's almost like a karate gi, because when I punch, it snaps too. I love that. And my whatever shoes I wear. So this is my backwoods karate gi is what I like to call this. And then if I go out to the bag, these are mechanics gloves. I don't know if I've shared this, but I'm going to bring it up again to work on something that's a little bit closer to being bare knuckle. So you don't want to do all of your training in this, because then you'll never get used to feeling impact on your hand in a natural way, right? So this is why I use these. This gets you a little closer, or anything like, I have a really ugly old bag that's been in the weather, and I really don't like getting my skin on it. Now you can toughen your skin and all that if you want, but the same thing, there's a little bit of cloth in there. I mean, you can make a tight and proper fist if you want, but I love to use that hollow fist quite a bit, so I've been working with that. So that's something, I probably got that from being in Shaolin, but I feel like it automatically comes with training for boxing. Now, we don't really need these unless you're training for competition or sport. Otherwise, actually, the advantage you do have is if you're hitting a heavy bag, you get to practice a little power. So now this is more precision. I want to practice bare knuckle precision, being able to make my hand go right where I want it. So anyways, talk a little bit about how I stand and throw our basic punches. Now when we learn boxing, I almost think we're learning the punches in the order of importance, because you learn 1 and then you learn 2, then there's 3 and 4. So that's why they call it the old 1, 2. And so I think everywhere you go, people use a similar numbered system. And so the very first thing you learn is to jab. And the reason that's important is because if you think about it, your front hand is your guarding hand and your back hand is your fighting hand. If you want, think of the traditional swordsman with a shield and a long sword, right? So this is more of a defensive hand, and this is more of the attacking hand with the sword. So this is going to defend, and this one's going to be able to throw big, powerful movements. And so similarly with boxing, this is going to help defend more so, and this one's going to help throw like more powerful movements. So I can throw a very powerful punch with that lead hand. So in this case, throwing these jabs is a great way to ward off your opponent, just throwing jabs at them, even if they're no good. But if you want to land a nice, good jab, you might actually step with it a little bit. So we're going to use the fighting stance that I was talking about. It's a little bit more forward facing than we're used to. It's almost a front stance. And if we're just standing, we might just only rotate our hip to throw that punch. But if you really want to add power, it might take a small step and close the distance. So now the nice thing about boxing is it teaches you where to get the most power. So you're going to turn your hip and shoulder together as that punch comes out. And let's say you were in front of me. I should be looking down my arm. I don't really want to shrug my shoulder. When I throw those punch, we actually turn it over just a little bit, and we want to be looking down like we're looking down the barrel of the gun. So when I throw that lead punch, if anything, I really like to fight in a higher stance, so that way when I strike, I can sink into my stance and use a little bit of falling power as I step and punch to get a nice strong one. So now if you're fighting, this is actually old school boxing too, fighting like this. So new school, we talk about that peekaboo, being able to hide seek under your hands, say, so you're ready to deal with a wrestler, or just being ready to cover your head, because this is the other thing that's different about my new stuff. I didn't learn till I got up here. Actually, down in Denver, I had a guy teaching Kun Tao Silat. They talk about this bat and helmet. So a full helmet is like this. So, and then there's so you might use a bat and helmet. You just might use kind of both hands the same way. So this is something that's kind of new to my training, because when somebody's swinging on you, you can kind of shell up and then drive in on them. So that's something I haven't really worked on until now. So that's where your hands are in close, and that way we're ready to defend in this way, whatever we need to do here. So anyways, back to this. So we got to remember that we're leading with our head, we're not leaning with our head. But this is also going to help drive that punch if all of that's together. So, and then of course 1, 2, so everybody understands you got to throw that 1 first. So there's really 2 kinds of punches. There's jabbing and thrusting, okay? So if you wanted to, you could make that a thrust punch, but the common combination we talk about is going to be your jab thrust, because that jab will open them up. If that's not a finish, then it should set up the second punch. If everything's going smooth, you should be able to throw that jab and then follow up. So while you're throwing that punch, you're back here. Now the good thing about having one hand out is when you pull it back, it gives you extra power. So that's the disadvantage your front hand has, is it does not have the pullback hand. So that's where it's all by itself, right? So it needs to do everything it can to get any power without the help of this one. So all he does is hang out the right hand over here, and then when this one's been out there, this hand gets the assist of this one coming back to guard. So the way we think of it is, if you had guns on the bottom of your elbow, it's like you're trying to stick it back in its holster each time you're finished shooting them out. So that way you don't end up like this or like that. So you don't want to drop your guard. You want to make sure it stays where it belongs. After your punches, your hands need to come back where they belong. And then at the same time, being able to throw another one out and remembering to keep that all there. So when we throw that front punch, I'm going to do is I'm going to step and rotate my hip enough to help support the thrust, the projection of that punch. And when I throw that back punch, I'm not only going to twist myself, so I'm on the ball of my foot, I'm letting my knee point to the floor, but what's happening here is I'm twisting from here to here, like past center, to throw that second punch out there. Or actually it should go like this, okay, all the way out. So that's how I'm going to get my extra power, is so from here I get to turn part of the way, the second hand gets to turn all the way. So what I was going to say is, not only am I turning my body, I'm also sinking into that a little bit. So that's where I like having the back foot on the ball of the foot, and then it's like your knees pointing to the ground a little bit as you're executing that punch. So this first one's going to rely, if you step with it, you can get some falling power. And then on the backhand, when you sink a little bit, that helps launch that out. And then we need to be able to return to a good guarding stance and go from there. So anyways, that's the 0-1-2 according to the way I'm training. And so I've been working with a forward-facing stance. I've been using a relaxed fist. It's a little bit like your Xingyi Tai Chi fist. And then when it comes in, you're looking down the barrel of the gun. Now another tidbit here, okay, so we're going to slow this down to where, here's how it finishes. Now this is what should happen when you punch. See? Should hit and relax. Now once it relaxes, then it should just come right back home, okay? So we're going to try this. Now, being able to bring those back, being able to have good snapping power, relax and return that. So just basic stuff, and then you might fight with your hands open so you're able to block your head, and then we'll talk about other strategies next time. Anyway, so that's I'm changing some of my basics, moving from east to west as a martial artist. So, I'm so exhausted from sharing all that. I don't train as much as I used to, but when I do train, I try to make sure that I'm putting in good quality work by standing in the right stance, by remembering to be aware of all of my body movement. So as long as you're working on good functional movement and proper technique, and make it fun, that way when you need to, if you ever need to step back and fight, you step back and throw those punches without even thinking about it, and you might even do it correctly. Anyway, so this is how I've been changing my basic stance and my basic, what you call your primary punches. The next time I come on, I'm going to tell you a little bit about other ways that we can punch and strike. Okay, so you guys have a good day, and I will talk to you next time.